My name is Drew Hegde, and today we're going to be doing a small podcast episode talking about life, virtues, and basically whatever. So I hope you enjoy it. These are my friends right here. Why don't you give us an introduction?
I'm Sharik.
I'm Tanish.
I'm Hari, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about first? We can talk about anything.
I'm going to say, I think we should talk about what is the most important value in order to lead a successful life.
What do you think it is?
I think confidence is key. So I think you need confidence in order to start anything. The first, when you jump into something, you need to have the confidence and belief that whatever actions and decisions you'll make in the future, it's for a good cause. And whatever you do, there'll always be a good outcome. Whether it's starting a business, starting a new starting a new habit, or starting a new hobby, you have to make sure that you're confident and you're dedicated enough for it to succeed. I feel like confidence will lead to dedication. If you're confident in that this thing you'll be successful in this thing, I feel like everything else will follow and adapt.
I would like to add on something to Hari. Along with confidence, I think that you should have a passion towards something that you are confident about. Because with the passion, you're truly interested in the topic and you feel dedicated towards it, like Hari said. So with the passion, there might already be some level of dedication that you'll already feel towards it. Again, you will have to work your way up till the top to feel like that true dedication, but there'll always be that level of interest because you have that passion towards that subject, and you'll probably be more likely to end up successful in something that you are interested in and you are knowledgeable at, rather than just a whole new topic that you don't know anything about, that you're just joining because everyone else is.
Yeah, generally, we've seen these success stories. We've seen Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, all these different successful people, and that's because they had the confidence, right? Like you mentioned, confidence is key. I even earlier, just off camera, he was telling you own the stage, you own the world. Basically, if you have confidence, you're able to do whatever you want. You can be able to start a book, write a book. You're able to start a business, and all of these individuals, they have to have confidence and, Tanisha, the passion to be able to drive forward. Because one of the hardest things that I've noticed, especially when you're pursuing a long-term goal, such as book writing, is the fact that you have to remain dedicated to it, and you also have to have that amount of knowledge regarding it. I feel like passion, dedication, those are all important, I agree, but then you also have to have the experience in order to tell this tale. One of the hardest things about authoring a book is that you start to become repetitive, especially after page 40. I found that was kind of a breaking point, because especially after that you start repeating yourself. You question whether the things that you wrote before were all the things that maybe they were false, maybe they wouldn't apply, maybe they were just not your best work, and you start doubting yourself. And like you said, that's where confidence comes into play.
Yeah, I also like to add on to that.
How does somebody find that passion? If you don't have that curiosity, how are you going to discover what you actually like to do?
Well,
to get these experiences, you're going to need to have that sort of passion already to be able to want to discover and find new things.
Well, I would say maybe until you're 18 or maybe 20, even in the school environment, the amount of different classes that you're offered.
We've seen children be able to accomplish things much greater than adults.
Yeah, I mean that like I'm saying, anywhere from that 0 to 20 range, that whole set, you are just learning, right? And then you are thrown out into the real world after high school, and that's when you really have to make a decision about your life. But in that period of school, middle school, high school, preschool even, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a certain age limit. You're learning about the things around you, and you will develop curiosities for it.
So do you think learning is the main factor into being able to discover all this stuff?
Well, you don't necessarily have to enter into a school environment. A school environment does help.
So what should somebody learn if they want to be successful?
Hey, wait, I think I have an answer for that. Learning is not something where you just gain technical knowledge. I feel learning is going and exploring. Let's say you play a sport, you go do dance, you can go and just do a club activity. The more experiences that you have, the more you put yourself out there in the world. That's learning. Because you're learning about all these different things that are happening.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that. I feel like whenever you're learning, I think the true motivation to learn is passion. Because if you're passionate about something, like Drew said, if you're writing a 40-page book and after page 40 you're stuck, but you're still passionate and you still want to finish that 400-page book, what do if you want to write it? You have the passion, which provides the motivation, and that allows for you to dedicate your time into writing that book. So I feel like passion will fuel learning and will fuel your dedication into doing something.
Definitely a motivating force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of these kids don't have those sorts of opportunities to go out and get these experiences, though. A lot of them will have to work hard to focus on their priorities, and eventually they somehow manage to find a passion.
Mhm.
even
Working
amongst
hard
that.
is not something that we have a deficit of. We've seen everyone work hard. Everyone is at a position. There's very few people. Have you ever seen a success story of a billionaire
Everyone
son
has the
becoming a
potential,
billionaire?
but like not a lot of people
Okay,
choose to.
Yes, I
I-
agree. So you have the potential, yes, but what makes you want to achieve that potential? There has to be a driving factor. Like for example, you can't just like come in first day, day one, and know everything. There's always a learning curve, and that learning curve is the toughest part of anything. Like whenever you start anything, the first couple of days or first couple like weeks or months, that is the hardest part of everything. But the motivation, once you cross that, the envisioning of the future and the passion you have about attaining that future is what drives you, in my opinion.
I think it's really important to have like people around you that can help you to fuel that passion, because if you don't have that initial stimulus to keep you going in those initial early days, I think it's really hard to keep going with that passion. I mean, we've seen a lot of people start things but never finish them.
I do agree. I believe like you need to have a healthy environment to grow up in, because when you have that healthy environment, you always know that you have that one person. It doesn't even have to be one person. It could be multiple people. You know that they support you, and when you know that there are people that are supporting you, you'll feel like Hari said. You'll feel more confident to chase that passion. You'll feel more confident to put more dedication in writing that 400-page book. Even though you're on page 40, you'll still feel like going it, because at the end of the day, even if you are feeling down or you don't feel like continuing, you always have that healthy environment that are always cheering you on or always supporting you. And that, I think, is another driving factor in confidence.
I disagree with both of you. This is where it gets interesting, because I feel like there's a lot of divide that people don't like generally represent this kind of area. And that's due to the fact that having a healthy environment isn't always going to help you grow your passion. I feel like the individuals, who do you see succeeding? Do you see the billionaire son?
Yeah, I
making
agree,
another company?
because like people like Steve Jobs, for example, he didn't have a really good work environment. For example, in like order to become successful, like he actually went bankrupt, like I believe like several times.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think like under extreme adversity, when you're like at the lowest of the low, I think the fact that you're so low and you see all these people above you that are successful, I think that extreme can be the most powerful force and the powerful passion that derives from being in like the lowest places. I think that type of passion, that's just raw passion, I think that will actually like drive you to become the best of everybody. So I
struggle
agree.
creates desire, and that desire is able to allow somebody to go as high as possible. But from that position, it usually seems like people will lose that passion eventually, and they become stagnant. With that stagnant environment, there's no more potential for growth.
I sort of agree with both of you. I do believe that seeing like you at your worst lowest and then seeing someone at the top and you wanting that desire, I do believe that you can. But I do believe that after some time that ambition can be too much. And after a certain point, when you reach like that level, even if you still have that ambition, like even if you're still wanting even more and more, I feel like after that point, you are just asking for too much. Like a good like story is Napoleon, right? He grew up from poor and humble origins, and he saw like in the midst of the French, he wasn't able to climb up the ranks because of how officials his like sons or daughters were getting like really high ranks, and he wasn't based on skill. And like he had this ambition, so he grew up as a general, like one of the best generals, I believe, in my opinion. And he grew up to be first consul for life, and then he ended up even being the emperor. But like, what happened then? Like all of Europe, like he still wanted to expand that, and he basically wanted all of Europe, and he even invaded Russia because he still had that ambition too much.
Okay.
History
Yes,
only
I agree
remembers-
with that. Okay, so what happens with Napoleon in the beginning is correct. He was confident, he was passionate, he wanted to be an overachiever, and that's where he did his best work. But the thing is, when he got to power, he let that get to his head.
Yeah.
He was envious, he was jealous, he was overconfident. There's a difference between confident and being overconfident. I feel like being confident can achieve great things. But like they say, too much of everything is a bad thing. Too much of confidence is what led Napoleon to his destruction. So I think confidence and passion combined together is what brings the best in people and what brings the most effort and like the most positive results in order to attain success.
So is it really about all of these factors? What if it's just a completely different story? Like history only remembers the great people who managed to achieve things
That's
coming from the
because
bottom to the top.
they climb from the bottom
So
to the top.
people who start off with a lot are able
They're
to.
still able to achieve, but
They start off on such a high position that it's really hard for them to be able to fall
because they
down.
don't understand the
Exactly.
value of working
They
hard.
don't
So is
understand.
it really about your own passion, or is it, or does success come with just being born or having that?
I do not
I
believe
don't-
that. I would have to completely disagree with you. I believe. I mean, even if you are born, like even if you are Bill Gates's like son or daughter, you are not born with success. You are born with
That's
parents.
not what he said, though.
Huh?
That's not what he said.
What did he say?
He said the opposite. Like
What?
he was saying the fact that these individuals are not recognized because they're
Yes,
already
I
born.
feel like they're not recognized because their parents they've already attained the top level, and therefore I don't think they're not recognized enough. I think that's a fair point. However, if they decide to choose a completely different career and decide to level up in their own matter in that career, they can still be very successful. Like for example, if you're born from like a very popular like artist, for example, and you decided to branch out and like start a company and become an entrepreneur, and you become successful in that environment that's completely unrelated to like your family or like what their reputation is, I think you'll still be recognized for that.
Yeah, wait, I want to add to this because we've seen this with like this new boxing match. I've seen like KSI go at it, and there's this new man, Hasim Rahman Jr. And he's actually he's going on his way and he's trying to become the world champion. His father was the world champion, and this kind of goes to show. Of course, yeah, he might be recognized that people might be following him because his father was the world champion. But he's carving out wins.
Mhm.
He's putting in the work. He's trying to
Mhm.
like build his own path, and that's what a lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize.
So honestly, there really is no one answer. Like all
So-
of these things combined can lead to success. Whether it's through a variation of these or just one of these, anything, it's really up to that person themselves. Like it's really
Mhm.
about you.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of factors you come from, you can use all of these to your advantage and eventually achieve
Mhm.
success.
I'd
Whether
like to add to
it's
that
nothing
point.
or all everything.
I feel like yes, there are many different routes. The way you attain it, I think that's what you'll be remembered for. Cause if you're truly from the lowest of low and like you make your way to the top through that manner, I think you'll be recognized more than someone popular and you being born as a result of just like random chance from that person and also becoming successful. I feel like the path is what shapes the person. So not just like the current standing, but how they attain that. For example, and like I'm taking racing as an example here. They're all Formula One drivers, but there's drivers that their dads are billionaires and they're paid to race in that car. They attain the same goal too. They were born, but they had an easier path because money. But then there's also people that are like the poorest of poorest, and their parents were like decently. They were well off, but they still had to carve their own effort and build their own path to like Formula One, for example. And a perfect example would be Lewis Hamilton. He was born in a middle class family, but his effort and his parents, his motivation and passion for that sport is what propelled him to become one of the greatest in the sport. And he's won like 7 times this world championship, and that's what he's known for. He's known for being that good, and his origins are from a humble descent. So there's many ways that you can attain the same end goal, but you'll be remembered more for how you attained it.
Yeah, I think it's more important to remember those who actually came from, who pushed their limits and grew beyond what anybody could think. So, yeah, I honestly think it's a multitude of answers, and yeah, I think we had a good discussion.
I was gonna conclude this actually, but that last point where you said we should only recognize the people who came from what we didn't expect to, I feel like we do expect that from them. Despite this might be contrary of opinion, but you don't look at these individuals. That's what I mean. A lot of people from humble backgrounds, these individuals. You can even look at third world countries. These individuals recognize the problems of the common man.
Yeah.
We all take AP US history, and today our teacher was talking about Andrew Jackson and how he appealed to the common man. He was the first president to do so. And I just want to think about this, because a common person makes up the majority of people. Not
Yeah.
everyone is at the lowest of lows, despite the fact that a lot of people just glorify this, saying a lot of people come from nothing. The majority of people are just in a middle position.
Yeah.
Some might be in the lower end of that, some might be in the higher end of that. But you have to consider this is the amount of people which understand struggle to a good extent, but they also have the environment which gives them a bit of resources, and they also know about what problems these individuals face.
Yeah, so this is just how life is. Most of the people are in the middle, and most of them are going to stay in the middle. You know, there might be slight fluctuations, but for the most part, you know, that's what I was saying. Like, history usually remembers the ones who are managed to achieve something, and that's why we have to use their example, as part of the
Yeah.
the middle category to
'Cause
grow. And
I
prosper.
agree. History does remember the ones that survived against all odds, and the fundamental reason why is because they expected the unexpected. Basically, they didn't know that this low life person was gonna be this prosperous and this like popular, and that's why I think the sheer fact that they're surprised that this is what it became led history to remember them.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we had a great discussion.
I'm gonna conclude this. I just want to just let's wrap up the discussion. I'm just gonna say that I think it all comes down to understanding your environment, understanding your position, understanding problems. You need to be able to realize that there's a lot of things that are going against you, but a lot of things that are for you. There's gonna be people in many different positions, but at the end of the day, you just have to do the best to drive a passion, drive an understanding, and supplement your knowledge.
Yes.
So yeah, with that, I'm just gonna end this.
Mhm.
Thank you for being on this episode, and yeah,
Pleasure
we'll
to
see